You are now tuned into Celeste the Therapist Podcast. Hello, my name is Celeste. Thank you so much for giving me a try. If you are new here, I want to say thank you so much for checking me out. What we do here is I talk about areas of our lives that we get stuck in. I talk about why we get stuck, and I help you shift the way you think about it by giving you practical tools. I'm all about using what you have, starting where you can. And I think a lot of times people tend to give up because they don't understand why they're feeling this things that they're feeling or why things are happening. And I find that the more educated we are about a topic, the better it is for us to create change in our life. If you are a longtime listener, thank you so much for sticking it out with me. I appreciate you. If you enjoy these episodes that I do me a favor, share it with somebody that you love. If you want a topic discussed, all you got to do is email me info@celestetherapist.com. If you want to follow me, you can follow me everywhere at Celeste the Therapist. Also, I have a whole wellness center that I created called Shifting the Way You Think. And if you want to learn more about the Wellness Center, get involved, attend one of the classes, all you got to do is go to stwyt.com. Again, that's www.stwyt.com. All right, let's get into this amazing episode. All right. Hello, beautiful people. So, my name is Celeste, and I'm a therapist. I just want to shout out to Michelle, who sent me the shirt. My therapist is black. I love the shirt. If you're new here, I talk about things that we struggle with and then try to give you some education and awareness and tips. Today's subject, we're talking about suicide. And it's such a taboo topic. It's a subject that people think like we don't want to talk about it because if we talk about it, then it can encourage someone to do something, which is not true, right? I'm all about putting everything out on the table, being transparent. A lot of people are struggling with so many different things, but I see that people struggle in silence. And this podcast was created in 2018 because I wanted people to have a free avenue to help them on their journey, on their healing journey, on their discovery of who they are and why they work the way they work, right? The more you understand yourself, the better it is. Like we don't come with the manual, you get instructions on how to set something up. And sometimes people throw those instructions away and they have to go back out the trash and be like, let me see what it says. We don't come with the manual, but the more we understand and make space and time to pay attention to what's going on, we will start to understand ourselves better. And I promise you, understanding yourself better feels so good because now you're not feeling like everything is happening to you. So this episode is good for people that might be struggling with SI, ideation, suicidal. I'll say SI, but struggling with those kind of thoughts. Or if you are a loved one trying to get support for someone in your life, I want this episode to be something that encourages and empowers you. I want you to take heed to the things that I'm saying and try to implement some things in your life that may stick out for you. All right, so let's just start with what is the definition of suicide. And it says it's the act of intentionally causing harm on one's death, which happens a lot. If we were to look at the stats, more than 720,000 people died due to suicide every year. Suicide is the third leading cause of death amongst 15 to 29-year-olds. And then 73% of global suicides occur in low and middle income countries, which is very interesting. So, those are some stats that you may not be aware of. And I feel like the age is getting younger and younger, and where people are kind of losing hope. One thing about the mind that's important to remember is that it doesn't have concept of time. What I do know is a lot of people are struggling with feeling the stored pain or the stored trauma in their body, in their system, and their thoughts. And this podcast, like all of these episodes that you can find over 400 episodes, where I'm sharing a story or I'm talking about an issue. And these episodes will help you start to see a way out, right? I'm big on shifting the way you think, because if you get stuck in your head, it's so easy to feel hopeless and feel like nothing's going to change. And as somebody who understands how easily it is for these thoughts to get stuck in your head, which is why I do what I do, which is why I have this platform. I have this an amazing like passion to help people understand themselves, understand their journey, so that they can have hope, right? That's my main mission in life, right? I recognize this is my purpose because it comes easily. It's something I can do without getting paid. It's teaching people about mental health and about themselves. These are some common risk factors. And if you are listening to me on the audio, this podcast does stream on YouTube as well. And I have visuals for people that are more visually inclined, where I'm putting up information so that you can see it while I'm talking about it. So, some common risk factors. If you're struggling with a mental disorder, if you're struggling with like depression, anxiety, bipolar, right? Though that's people that are at high risk. If you have physical disorders or struggling with substance abuse, also high risk. With these physical ailments, dealing with pain a lot, it's easy for you to struggle with some kind of depression or feeling hopeless. Impulsive acts driven by financial issues, relationship problems, or bullying. So, people that are in high stressful situations, it's easy to make a permanent decision in the moment of dealing with high stress, right? Because in those moments, you feel like you can't see your way out. And then people who may have had a previous attempt of suicide are also at a higher risk for suicide. Now, these are some things I wanted you to understand what suicide is, kind of the stats and the risk factors, right? Now, the rest of this segment, we're going to talk about strategies, ways that you can think about working on creating a toolbox for yourself, right? If you're struggling, or if you are a loved one of somebody who struggles, I want to help empower you. Like, I think so. I'm a therapist, right? A real therapist. People say, "Are you a real therapist?" I'm a real therapist. And I went to school for this. But I also have a lot of wisdom. I read a lot, right? And so I don't want people to feel because they're not like a therapist that they can't help their loved one, right? I think if you equip yourself with enough information, I want you to be empowered, right? So I'm gonna give you like these 10 different things that you can think about, and they are in no order. It's not like one supersedes the other. They just happen to be posted in the way that is posted. So take what you can, leave what you can't, right? So some prevention. One, seeking professional help. So as you can see on the screen, I have therapy, counseling, medication. Um, Now, I believe in therapy, and I believe that therapy can help, right? Therapy's helped me. I help people through therapy. I also know that therapy can be challenging to get, right? You see, I got my shirt, my therapist is Black. There's like 4% of people in America that are Black. And if you are a Black person, a lot of times you want to talk to somebody that looks like you, and that can be challenging. Or finances can prevent you from being able to see someone, right? But if you are comfortable or have insurance or thinking about seeing a therapist, right, that can be something that can be helpful. I also have on here medication. In some cases, medication may be necessary to manage underlying medical conditions like depression and anxiety. I am somebody who I'm not a person that's like, oh, no medication, but I am somebody that thinks about like, let's look at other ways that we can work on ourselves and let medication be a last resort, right? I've never had to take medication, but I work with people who ended up taking medication and finding some relief. And then they've been able to work through some things and get off. And some people are still on it. And it helps them manage some of their symptoms, right? So that is one avenue that can help, especially when people are dealing with like deep anxiety that is hindering them from dealing with everyday life stuff. A lot of times with the medication, it can help people like take the edge off so that they can get to a place to work on themselves and work on the things that they need to work on. So that's one kind of intervention. Follow up and check ins. So, regular check ins, encouraging your friends and family to check in regular with individuals who are struggling. And then monitoring progress, encourage individuals to keep track of their feelings and progress and to communicate any changes to their support network. This is important. If you are somebody who has a friend or a family member that's struggling, check in with them, right? You don't have to understand what they're going through, right? A lot of times we don't understand. So don't like say, like, oh, I get it if you don't get it. But listening, sometimes just listening is helpful. When it comes to monitoring progress, I think being able to check in with yourself how you're feeling so that you can see, you know what, yesterday I between 1 and 10, I was feeling like a 4, but today I'm feeling like a 6. Like my mood is a lot higher. Being able to see your growth is important because it allows you to be like, okay, like I'm stepping a step forward, right? I'm progressing. Monitoring your progress with your emotions. It's also good to monitor your emotions and your progress and pay attention to how you're feeling so that you can understand your triggers. Sometimes there are things in our lives or people in our lives that are very triggering, but because they've always been around or because we've always done things a certain way, we always deal with family because we were taught family is important. We don't realize how they could be hindering us or triggering us, right? So the more you start to monitor the things that you're feeling and the ways that you find yourself affected, again, you'll be able to create that manual where you can start to understand what it is that ticks you off, what it is that motivates you, right? How could you understand yourself if you are not doing anything to monitor when you find yourself struggling? The next prevention thing I want you to think about is encouraging meaningful activities. So, engagement in hobbies is important. Volunteering can be something that's important. When you are doing things that you love, I know a lot of creative people who find themselves just working, and not doing anything creative. And so we work on a plan and talk about the importance of adding some creativity to your life, no matter what that looks like, right? I'm somebody who I started learning how to cook out of necessity. Cooking for me is an outlet. Gardening and my plants, they're an outlet for me, right? That's something where I say it's a hobby. It's a hobby I learned. Actually, when it came to cooking, if you don't follow me on social media, you could follow me on Instagram, all social media platforms, Snapchat, TikTok at Celeste the Therapist, where I share a lot of my life. But being able to learn how to cook and garden, and I have really amazing plants. I cook really well. I actually learned on YouTube. And I always like to share that because it's a free place that you can get information. And it's an outlet for me, right? So, what are your outlets? What are the hobbies you're engaged in, right? And if you're asking, like, what does this have to do with suicide? Being able to have a plan or create things in your life, I look at it as your toolkit for living, right? When it comes to surviving life, we know we gotta like eat, we know we gotta drink water, we know we need sleep, right? When it comes, that's surviving. We know we gotta work to get paid. When it comes to living life, I feel like we don't have those tools, right? And so when you think about being able to engage in meaningful activities, that can bring you so much joy. And if you're saying to me as you're listening to this, Celeste, I don't know what that looks like. I would encourage you to start with thinking about things you may have liked when you were younger, or start to pay attention to the things that you see that like bring you joy or puts a smile on your face, right? I promise you there's something that you can engage in that can bring you joy, and that you may find yourself loving. I didn't love cooking at first, and like I said, I did it out of necessity. And so it's something that like really brings me joy to cook for my family and for others. The next thing I want you to think about is limiting access to means. So removing dangerous items. So like firearms, medication. These are for people that may be struggling with suicidal thoughts, sharp objects. That's important. There are some people that will have like these thoughts about it, right? If you find yourself having thoughts about it, if you feel that you're unsafe, right? Find a trusted friend, family member, and anything, especially if you've attempted in the past, get those things out of your house, get them out of your room, right? sharp objects, like so that it's not something that you're thinking about or going to, right? And again, when it comes to suicide, right? I tell people that sometimes when things get hard, you tell yourself, like, I wish I wasn't here, right? And so that's a suicidal ideation. That's the thoughts that you have. And a lot of people, including myself, have had those thoughts of, like, I wish I wasn't here. When you start to think about a plan, that's when it gets really scary, right? And these things that I'm talking about today is because I want to help you not get to that point where you are creating a plan, where you start envisioning yourself. I've talked to people who have attempted, right, in the hospital, like, and met with them, and they talked about this stuff. I've talked to people who were creating a plan. I talked to people who were family members of people who had just passed away due to suicide. So it's such a really hard subject where a lot of people are left, with no answers. Because I've been able to talk to people for a living who have been in this process, I have a deeper understanding on what's going on. And so I really want to encourage you, anytime you find yourself like thinking about a plan of what you would do, it's dangerous, right? And I want you to get in tune. I want you to reach out for support. There's a safety net hotline you can call, right? I really want you to think about that. But again, if sharp objects, if you do own a weapon, if medications is something that you think about like using, like, start to get out of your head. You can't do this by yourself. I'm gonna say that one more time. You cannot do this by yourself. So if you don't have a trusted friend or family member, reach out for support. I'm gonna give you numbers that you can call, because I really want to give you hope. The next thing I want you to think about is healthy lifestyle choices. Creating a healthy lifestyle can actually improve your mental health, believe it or not. When it comes to your physical health, so physical activity can reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety, creating a balanced diet that can support your overall well-being, and sleep, stressing the importance of good sleep hygiene. This is something I'm always talking about on the podcast, on my stories and my Instagram and social media. I'm talking about my life, how I'm trying to move my body, right? How that the foods are important. And if you live in America, I promise you, they don't care about the type of foods that they are putting in these in the food choices that we have. A lot of the foods that are created here and the ingredients that are used here are banned in other countries, right? So they really don't care. And I really want to emphasize the importance of, yes, you may have a long way to go of changing your food choices, right? But I don't want you to not try. I shared this story a million times, but when I was trying to work on my health and I was working out, I would go to Burger King's and have a Whopper. It was like one of my favorite meals. I love burgers, not realizing like I was defeating the purpose, right? It's not about not having that burger, but it's about not having that burger every day. Greens wasn't a part of my diet or anything like that. It's kind of like eating on the go. That was like normal for me. So, once I recognized like that's not the best thing to do, I found myself saying like, okay, I'm going to make this change. So I like went out and brought all these like healthy things, but that was like hard. Those healthy things went to waste because I didn't know how to incorporate that into my diet. So I started educating myself, right? Months, it turned into years. And I started with breakfast. I literally just started making smoothies in the morning. I'm like, you know what? Let me try to just start my day with the smoothie. My lunch and dinner was probably crap back then, right? But at least I got the breakfast out of the way. It was a very intentional process. So I think sometimes we think we got so far away to go when it comes to trying to work on our healthy choices. Instead of thinking about, oh my gosh, I got this long way to go, how about thinking about what can I do right now in this moment to create change? Right? So educate yourself. YouTube, there's podcasts, they're free resources where you're listening to people that are talking about it. I listened to people talking about different changes that you can make in your food choices. And over time, it started to resonate with me. It was something that my mind started to shift and create a way for me to see the possibilities. You can't see the possibilities if you're not feeding your mind with information that's going to teach you how to create that change. When it comes to sleep, if your sleep is horrible, if start creating a sleep routine. I promise you it can help. If you are on your screen scrolling with that light, even if you're watching healthy things, like, which I know is impossible. I don't care how much you curate your feed to have like a kind of healthy way of thinking and living, something could be thrown in there that could throw you off. So regardless of that, that light on the phone is telling your mind that we're still up and wired, right? So if you can work on creating a nighttime routine 30 minutes before you go to bed, turn the phone off, put the phone away, right? You can put on some, if you need some noise, put on some like sleep sounds on YouTube, something that's familiar, that can help you sleep, right? If you are struggling with a lot of thoughts before you go to sleep, you can have like a thought journal by your bed and write those thoughts out. Just because you go to sleep, if you're struggling with thinking a lot, doesn't mean that you're going to fall asleep. If you're dealing with a stressful situation and your mind is trying to get answers, like, oh my gosh, let's say you're about to start a new job. Oh my gosh, like, what's going to happen tomorrow? Answer that thought. Like, I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I know I'm going to meet with Susie and she's going to go over X, Y, and Z. Right. A lot of times, sometimes we're ruminating over things where our mind is just really trying to get answers. It's doing what it's designed to do. Like, don't, sometimes I think it's hard because you feel like your mind is deceiving you, or you feel like, oh, why is this happening? Right. Instead of doing that, take time to think about what's going on in your head. It can be scary to start to access the thoughts that are happening. But what's scarier is the fact that you're living your life off of these thoughts that may not be true. A lot of the thoughts that you're experiencing are from your past trauma, the things that you've experienced, the things that you're watching, the conversations you're having, right? So we're constantly being bombarded with advertisement. If you live in a country where advertisement, like, it's capitalistic, like in America, everything's about what can we sell people, like how can we make people buy this thing. So a lot of the things that are in your head are based off of so many things that has nothing to do with wellness. And so if you're not making time to meditate and think about what's going on, what's happening is that you're allowing your thoughts to be the lens on your life, and that is just not fair to your overall well-being. Let's just get into this advertisement real quick, and I'll come back with the last four. I hope you're enjoying the episode. Quick announcement. I want to give you some ways you can support, right? I have two books. One is called Relationship Goals. It's a guide to a healthy relationship. I also have a guided journal. And if you find yourself stuck in thoughts, want to get your thoughts on paper, I ask you different questions, and I also ask you how you're feeling. I provide you with the feelings chart. If you go to celestetherapist.com, you can find 365 days of intentional living along with relationship goals. Another way you can support me, I have this wellness center, whoop, whoop, that I'm so excited about, called Shifting the Way You Think Wellness Center. At my center, I do not want finances to be a reason why people can't get what they need. So if you want to donate a class to someone, please feel free to go to my website, stwyt.com, and you can give a donation. The classes run between $15 and $35. My goal is for everyone to be able to access these services regardless of finances. So if you can donate, please donate to your girl center. I would be greatly appreciated. All right, y'all, let's get back into this amazing episode. All right. So the next thing I want you to think about, whether it's you or somebody that you love, is thinking about a safety plan, right? So being able to identify triggers, helping individuals recognize situations or feelings that might lead to these thoughts, which we just talked about, developing coping strategies. So creating a list of coping strategies and distractions that can be used when the thoughts arise, and emergency contacts. Include a list of people to contact in crisis, friends, family, or mental health professionals. Next I'm going to share some coping strategies, but having a safety plan is important because when you're struggling with these thoughts, you start to forget there are some people that you can call that care about you, right? There are some things that you can do that can help in those moments, to uh, help you not be so caught up in that thought of not wanting to be here. Because the more you think that way and the more you stay by yourself, which is why I said when if you're struggling with these thoughts, the worst thing you can do is isolate yourself. I know you may not feel like going to that support group. You may not feel like doing those things that can help, but try not to think about what you're feeling, because those feelings are temporary. They're not going to last. They're here for a moment, right? And so I really want you to think about those things as you're trying to create your safety plan. Being able to identify your triggers can help you, because if I am around certain people and I recognize the way that they're operating in life is making me feel sad or making me feel anxious, I'm going to limit the amount of time I work with them. For example, deal with them. For example, if you have coworkers and you have to work together, but then they're like, oh, let's go have some drinks after work, right? And they're engaging in conduct or conversation that's very triggering to you, and you're just sitting there going along with the flow and thinking like, oh, because they're my coworkers. No, you have autonomy over your life where you can say, you know what, I'm going to sit this one out, right? You don't have to say, like, oh, you're triggering me, right? Like, but you can not do it. But if you're not aware that you're being triggered by it, you're going to keep going out and having drinks with them after work. So be mindful of the things that you struggle with and when it happens. So again, you can understand yourself better. Now, when it comes to coping strategies, right, I want you to develop some coping strategies. Mindfulness and relaxation, like working on deep breathing, are a really great way. People who know me know my favorite artist is J. Cole. He's a great storyteller, he's so transparent. And I just listened to his 10-episode podcast he did with one of his best friends. And he talked about a change that took place in his life when he added meditation to his life. Like, it was so powerful. It was so powerful. He said, I was getting ready to record this album and it ended up being his best album. But he said, a lady that was working with him said, oh, won't you try meditation? He said, I started with 5 minutes, 10 minutes. He said, it was an amazing experience. I got to understand myself better, understand what worked, understand what didn't work, understood what set me off. And to this day, like, he continues to meditate. And if you're somebody that thinks that meditation, oh, I don't want meditation is hard because I have all these thoughts. Yes, that's what's happening. You have all these thoughts. And these thoughts are going to happen and continue to go on whether you choose to be a part of it or not. I say this a lot. Whether you're going to choose to be a part of your thoughts or not, your thoughts are going to keep going. So when you think about it, yes, it's hard initially to understand what's going on in your head because it can feel scary, it can feel hard. But over time, you start to gain power back, right? Your thoughts are in control of a lot of your decision makings on how you're feeling. And if you work on engaging with what's happening in your head, you can actually start to direct the path that you're going. So meditation is a great coping strategy. Journaling out your thoughts, another great coping strategy. When I was younger, I used to write in my diary a lot. And I remember writing and just feeling better, right? So that's why I continued to write. I didn't know anything about mental health and I didn't understand what I was doing was therapeutic, but it was so helpful for me because when the thoughts are in your head, it feels real. But when you say it out loud, when you write it out loud, it has less power. So for instance, when I'm working with people and they'll be like, yeah, I'm just so like I can't do this. Like it's so hard. Like I can't do it. And I said, oh, you can't? And I said, what makes you think you can't? I start to challenge that thought with them out loud. And then they start to reframe it and think like, wait, actually I could do this. But if you don't write it out, if you're not talking it out, you're allowing those thoughts to attach to the things that didn't go well or the things that you struggled with or the things people say you're not going to be able to do, right? For instance, this podcast I started in 2018. I remember people saying, you really want to start a podcast? Like, everybody has a podcast. If I didn't think about those conversations and declare power over my life, telling myself, like, no, I can do this. What's going to happen is, as I'm trying to start this podcast, if I'm not mindful, I'm going to let the thing that that person said stop me from starting this podcast. And we're in 2024, almost in 2025. And I would have never started this podcast. I would have never been able to help all the people that I help through this podcast. Right. So I really want you to be mindful of the thoughts that you're having, and journaling could be a great, great thing. The next one is like building your support network, right? So there are amazing support groups. NAMI is a great one, right? Um, and that's the National Alliance of Mental Illness. And you can Google it. They have a chapter in every state. But there are support groups that you could find online now. That's one thing that came out the pandemic, is that people have been able to get support online, and that's something that wasn't really heard of before the pandemic. Um, Reaching out to family and friends are important, only if they are supportive, right? I want to make sure they're supportive. Sometimes you have people in your life that are not supportive. So it's important that you know who the people in your life. And when I say they're not supportive, it doesn't mean that they're bad people, but sometimes people do not know how to give you the support that they need because they don't even know how to give it for themselves, right? So that's important to remember. Now the last thing I want you to think about is crisis hotline. Even if you're not feeling like you have a plan and you just want to talk, right? Because I know there are some people that may not feel like they have somebody in their life they can talk to, right? I know there are a lot of people that have that, but there are people that really don't have that. So I really want you to think about this crisis hotline. It's US, the National Prevention Line, 1-800-273-TALK. And then there's a crisis text line. So if you are somebody that don't want to talk and you rather text, guess what? There's a text line that you can do. And the text line, text hello to 741-741. I'll say that again. Text hello to 741-741. And if, someone's in immediate danger where, you can't, there's no intervention, they are at the planning stage, definitely reaching out to 911 is the best resort, because sometimes people get to that stage where they really need more intervention. So, again, this is a really hard topic where I know so many people who have been affected by this, right? I get choked up a little bit just thinking about it. Sometimes I can't believe how I'm still able to show up and do what I do, because the stories that I hear are really hard. um, from families, from people, they're really hard. And um, what keeps me going is knowing that I'm going to educate somebody so that they won't be the next person to feel like this is the route that they have to take. I want to educate somebody so if they may not have a therapist in their life or a therapist that they can talk to, at least they'll be equipped with some information. Some key points I want you to take out of today is that suicide is a complex issue influenced by various factors, and it's essential to approach it with empathy and understanding. So even if, like, I've heard people say, like, why would somebody do that? And it bothers me to my core, because if you've never walked in somebody's shoes, you can't really say, like, you can't really think that way, right? Like, I just want you to, and if you're listening to this and you have thought that way, I just want you to know people are dealing with things that you can't see. On the outside it looks good, but believe me, I know, I do this work. People are dealing with a lot of hard things that the naked eye can't see, right? A lot of internal our I always say it's us against us sometimes. We're fighting our own thoughts, our own selves, right? So approaching it with empathy and understanding. I also want you to take away that prevention is possible and there are effective strategies that can reduce suicide, right? So it is possible, intervention is possible. And then open discussion about mental health can help destigmatize the topic and encourage those in need to seek help. Like it's okay to talk about it, right? I don't want you to feel like talking about it is a bad thing, right? Even mental health, talking about it. When I first started, I started posting on social media probably back in like 2012, 13. I had this like passion because, I was working on myself and I'm like, oh, I'm learning all this stuff about like shifting the way I think and these things. So I had a passion to share with people. And people were like, oh, why are you doing that? Like it was such a taboo thing back in 2012. It wasn't something that people were talking about. But in my household, we talk about mental health the way we talk about pizza with my clients. Like that's what it is on my social media. When people think about mental health, they think about me because I'm always talking about it. I'm always bringing it into people's awareness so that they are aware, right? Because we're dealing with something that we can't see. But if you pay attention, it's affecting your entire life, physically, mentally, your choices that you're making, right? So I want to give people a different avenue. So take those points away. If this was helpful to you, I would love to hear from you. You can message me on social media right under one of the posts. If you enjoy it, share this with somebody that you love. You never know how one of these episodes can really help people. And if you want to support me, I have a couple of books. I also have a class that's coming up about healing the inner child. We have classes at the center. So if you are in the Boston area, the South Shore area, I actually have a center where we are having classes. I'm doing an online class as well on healing the inner child. And I'm also going to be doing a free workshop about thinking about your goals. I want people to think about their goals and have a plan. So if you want to work on creating a vision for yourself, all you got to do is go to stwyt.com/events and you will find the links to the different things that are taking place. And if you want to follow me, you can follow me everywhere by searching Celeste the Therapist. And until next time, beautiful people, I will talk to you later.